Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Great. You thought we gave you enough alcohol. Hi, my name is Marnie Webb. I'm with the team at Caravan Studios. Caravan's a division of TechSoup. We're an organization that helps nonprofits around the world be able to acquire and use technology. And for the last 6 years, those of us at Caravan Studios have been working with communities to actually build technology. And as a part of that, we've been hosting regular events and all kinds of events, right? We host events where people demo the great public good app projects that they've made. We host online community events where community managers get together and talk to one another about the best way to keep their peer groups going. And one of the things that we've seen in all of the work that we've been doing with nonprofits and for-profits is this issue of gender equity in recruiting. And it stops at recruiting, right? It's super interesting. Let's get women in the door, and then let's get the next woman in the door, because she's going to leave. Right? And she's not going to be able to move to a different division. She's not going to be able to get a promotion. And so what we wanted to have was a discussion that was about retaining women and what happens inside the organization once people come in the door, and how we set up the environments that support that. So that's what this panel is about. So Juan, thank you very much for coming to this. Thank you. And thank you all very much for speaking to it. And with that, I'm going to hand it over. Thank you very much.
Real fast, so also wanted to say thank you on behalf of Bright Idea for coming out and checking out our space. Anybody with a Best Idea Wins shirt works at Bright Idea. So if you have any questions, we're your hosts, so please ask us. I did want to say one thing about what Bright Idea was as well. We are an innovation management software company. If you have any questions about the product, this is the person to talk to. But one of the, I think, amazing things about our topic and kind of how we got here today is Susan and I sat next to each other at an event about 6 months or so ago, and I think speaking to the power of women, this was born out of one conversation. I told her a little bit more about Bright Idea and how at Bright Idea we believe that innovation has the power to change the world, and it's too important to be left to chance. And the best ideas should win. The best ideas come when you have a diverse group of people in the room. And so we started chatting, and that's how I think the topic resonated with Susan, obviously, and at TechSoup, and it obviously resonated here at Bright Idea. So I hope that you guys end this evening with maybe some new professional relationships. Please network. I hope that you guys have here's some fresh insights and maybe get some key takeaway actions that you guys can start, tomorrow or even tonight with networking. And so with that, I just wanted to pass over to Genevieve, who is our VP of Product and is helping lead strategy at Bright Idea. So it is an excellent role model for those of us ladies who are working at Bright Idea. She's been in tech for 7 years and at Bright Idea for 5 now. So it's a great example of a woman working in tech, and we've managed to retain her. So hopefully we'll learn some insights tonight.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Welcome, everyone. So happy to have you all here, and welcome to our panelists. I do want to start off by letting everyone introducing everyone. So right here on my left, we have Darcey Lachtman. So welcome, Darcey. She is a senior technical support engineer at Optimizely. Has been at Optimizely for 3 years and 5 total years in tech. Yes. And next to Katie Anderson, community manager at Square. 1.5 years at Square with a total of 4 years in tech. Welcome. And to her left, Lisa Juan. Welcome, product lead at Apple. 1.5 years at Apple so far, and a total 25 years in tech. And for those of you who are developers, Lisa did start off as a developer in her career. And next we have Rachael Katz. I'll be referring to her as Rachel K, because we also have Rachel E to her left. She is a social impact manager at Airbnb, 1.5 years at Airbnb, and 10 years in tech. And then finally, Rachel Estess, all the way over there, chief of staff at Exygy, and she's been at Exygy for 3.5 years, and a total of 3.5 years in tech. So welcome to all our panelists. Thank you for being here. So I want to, we're going to take about 45 minutes for me to ask our panelists some questions, for us to have discussion. I welcome further discussion. I might direct some questions towards some of you, but I welcome you to jump in and respond to each other as well. And then in the last 15 minutes, I will also open it up to the audience. So you all can start thinking about questions you might have for the panelists as well. Okay? So we won't take a long time trip down memory lane, but I am impressed by Lisa's career, 25 years in tech, and I thought it would be interesting for us to just start off by level setting. You know, have things gotten better for women in tech? So this is a question directed at Lisa, just kind of some observations on perhaps what has changed for the better or perhaps even for the worse over the years.
Sure. What has changed? Definitely, like, the workplace is much more fun. Like, have amazing perks. There's dogs. There's all kinds of amazing things I've seen at big companies and even at startups. So that's something that we weren't introduced to. And you guys also have huge starting salaries, which, you know, I was excited about $30,000 coming out. What has changed in terms of better for worse? I definitely see more women in development roles, not just in the marketing roles. And it's interesting because I'm in product now, which is kind of toggling between the two worlds. Still don't see a lot of women, especially you know, in more of the development, but I do see more coming. So that's kind of something that in the past 20, 25 years, like, it was really rare to see like a woman developer. And you're definitely getting like girls who code and all these groups, and it's great to see that.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. I think this is probably an interesting topic as it relates for all of us, and I want to talk about money. I want to talk about compensation. You know, we know there's a disparity. I did some research coming into the panel today, and in fact, the World Economic Forum predicts that it will take 202 years for gender parity to be reached from a compensation perspective. It's really too long, I think. So I want to explore this a little bit. I want to talk about some of the stories that our panelists might have to share around how, you know, how they've been able to make a difference, maybe one person at a time. So, Darcey, maybe I'll ask you to speak to an experience you've had.
Sure. So, I work at Optimizely, and Optimizely does a really good job with diversity, in my opinion. And I was having what I thought was trouble getting a raise or a promotion for a while. I thought I deserved it, and I didn't understand what was happening, and I was sort of seeing male coworkers around me get it, but in my intuition said it wasn't sexism. Like, I didn't feel like I was discriminated against or anything. So I talked to one of my male coworkers and I said, "How did you get a promotion? How did you get a raise?" And he said, "I asked for it." You just asked for it? Yeah, I asked for it. I went to our manager and I sat him down, and every time we have a one-on-one, which is really often at Optimizely, we have one-on-ones with our managers almost weekly, he would talk to him about it. So the next one-on-one I had, I told my manager I wanted a raise, and he said, "Okay, here's how you can get a raise," and told me the steps I needed to take to get a raise. And then I worked on those steps, and then I eventually got a raise. And then after I got that raise, I kept asking about how to get a promotion, and then we formed a criteria about it, and then I got the promotion. It's not that simple for everybody. I know that I am in a privileged situation. Optimizely is a great company to work for. It's really diverse. But I think as women, we sort of keep things to ourselves sometimes, and I think we're raised to keep things to ourselves, and I think we're raised to clean up messes and not really disrupt anything. And so the idea of asking for a raise might seem like you're needy, or you want too much, or you're taking up too much space, and I think no one's going to read your mind and no one's going to give you things you're not asking for. So that's my personal story about getting a raise and getting a promotion.
Thanks, Darcey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Katie had also shared an experience in her workplace.
Yeah, thanks again for having us all here. I'm really excited to be here. I've been at Square for a little over a year, and they just recently paired us with a mentee. And so I'm sitting with my mentee, and she's straight out of college, and she's just excited to be there. So I'm asking her kind of as a check-in to see how everything is going. And then we start bringing up compensation and reviews, because we're starting to go through this process now. And she's just totally blown away when I ask her, like, have you negotiated, like, what's your strategy for this? So I sat her down, we basically went through an entire strategy to negotiate, to open up lines of communication with her manager. And I've been taught to negotiate, but it's something that is still hard to do. You have to practice and practice again and again and again. But what's also interesting, relating back to Darcey's point about asking, we have this woman who's an engineer at Square named Jackie Liu, and she basically opened up her Twitter DMs asking other people who had experience in tech to DM her their salaries so that there's transparency around that. And that's something that's so important, to have the conversation with other coworkers, to understand that what you're asking for is in line with what's possible, and also to understand, like, if you are in a place of, not getting paid what you're actually doing at the company.
Does anyone else from our panel, thank you, want to speak to that?
Sure. So I think getting a promotion is one thing. I think the offer negotiating process is another important one. And I had an experience when I was negotiating my offer with Airbnb. I've always worked at the intersection of philanthropy and tech, but I came from philanthropy where, like, nobody gets paid a lot of money unless you're like the CEO of a massive, multinational nonprofit. And one of the questions that comes up, things are changing now legally in California, so look into the latest laws, because some of them are really great, but at this time when I was negotiating, they asked, well, what's your range, what's your salary, what's your compensation package? And I had a conversation with two men, my husband and my brother-in-law, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to tell them, this is my salary now, and I hope it's better than this. And they were like, no. And I felt like, when I was putting together, I felt like I was lying, right? Like, I was like, oh, well, I should just tell them the truth, and then, like, good things will come to me, which, like, in general is a good way to operate in your life. But what I didn't realize was, like, I was undervaluing the total package of everything that I had to offer, and so, that was just interesting for me to have somebody else look at it and be like, well, yeah, that's your salary, and there's this, and there's that, and there's this. And, I was able to kind of go back and confidently ask for a bigger number than I initially planned on, and then I ended up getting, like, what I asked for and more, and so that was a good, I don't know if anybody else uses this at their company, but a good learning lesson, which makes no sense, but whatever. And so I think that was just a huge one for me, because I was like, oh my god, I'm literally bullshitting right now. But, ended up getting more kind of out of the deal just from looking at the whole picture, not just like how much I'm making now. So.
I can speak to that from just a leadership level. I think oftentimes, like, it's up to women to negotiate really hard. It's up for people to ask for it. But I also think, like, companies have a responsibility to make it really clear to people what level you're at, what ranges go with those levels, how you can grow with the company. And when I first started at Exygy, those didn't exist. It was just how well you could negotiate with one guy. And you can imagine that creates a lot of frustration and inequality. And so, as stepping into the chief of staff role, one of the goals that I set out to do with support from our leadership team was being able to create that infrastructure that's just minimal, to give women and everyone the ability to be paid fairly.
Thank you. Yeah. I think there's some just really interesting learning lessons there, and I think that this concept of bullshitting is interesting to me, because it's kind of like relative bullshitting, right? It's to one person you feel like you're really just going out there on a limb, but to someone else, like, that's just truth, that's reality, that's how it can work. So I think there's some really interesting areas to explore there. So I want to talk about people who have helped you along the way in your career. So these people may be your managers that you've had, they may be mentors, informal or formal, or potentially sponsors at your companies. And managerial relationships are so important because oftentimes you might hear people who don't leave companies and people managers. So I'd love to hear some examples of where your managers have helped promote you and advance you in your careers. So who wants to start there?
I'm happy to start. My manager is sitting right over there. But I work at one of the tech companies that's fortunate enough to have female leadership. And that is just a huge support system for our team. And specifically, one memory comes to mind. We had just done a diversity and inclusion training where we were aligning on vocabulary around being an ally and gaslighting, all these things. And I'm from the South, so I never heard any of those words before, so that was generally helpful. And recommend that. But we were in a meeting together with two male coworkers, and one of the guys was leading it. And we know there was a problem. We were brainstorming solutions. I pitched an idea that didn't get a lot of traction, and 10 minutes later, the other guy in the room said the same idea. And every woman has been in that situation. And you kind of sit with your shame for a second because you can't be like, that was my idea. Because that doesn't look good. And so your choice is to sit quietly. And Roshan said, pause. I would like to acknowledge that Rachael said that 10 minutes ago. It was a great idea then, and it's a great idea now. And I was just it just really was so a wonderful moment for me. And to not only build trust with my manager, but also I think it created space for the four of us to have a quick conversation of going, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize I was doing that, and to kind of all check ourselves with our implicit bias, because we all have them, and to have a safe conversation around that. And I noticed after that meeting, the four of us were so quick to give credit now. You hear someone say an idea, and then you want to bring it to your next meeting. You go, well, Rachael said this, or Ashna said this, and you're able to really give credit. And so that's been a really important ally moment for me that I've hopefully paid forward.
Thanks, Rachael. And I think Lisa had a story to speak to as well.
Yeah, it was difficult being in development and being one of the only women early on in my career and trying to find mentors. My managers were a lot of men. When I would reach out to female mentors, they were really competitive, probably felt threatened, didn't feel very much like I could trust them or had allies in that respect. And then for me, I had to be okay, I just need to look for the people that have good qualities or have careers that I want to follow, and then I had to become proactive about, okay, who's my role model, who can take me under their wing. In any company, whether it's small or big, you want to build those relationships, and those are really important. Not just excelling in your skills, but having those relationships that will carry you on throughout the organization. Because when it comes down to people in the room deciding if you get promoted or not, they're going to talk about how you are, how you communicate, how you relate with others in the organization, and that became, I used to have a chip on my shoulder. I'm smarter than everybody else, I used to think that, and you can't have that attitude, even though you probably are the smartest person in the room, or, some woman thinks you're going to go after her job, you just have to have that integrity within you to kind of keep focused on what you want to do. And then if it doesn't work out, I've moved around a lot in my career because I realized, these people don't have the same values that I do, or I'm not going to move on, or I'm not going to find people who will foster my career. And, this is another thing I've seen change in the tech industry is, people move around a lot. It's never I was at eBay for 10 years, that's an anomaly, but people don't have a lot of loyalty to the jobs that they stay in today. And they're looking for the right organization and the right culture.
I just wanted to bring up a point about, I think it's so important to find mentors, allies across organizations, but it's also really important, I think, to look for people who look like you and to try and find people who you really see yourself in them. As a woman of color, like there are very few women in tech, and then there are even fewer women of color in tech. And so when I'm like looking at an organization, like I'm trying to look for people who I think have my values, not necessarily because they look like me, but they might be going through similar challenges or things that people don't have on their mind all the time because they don't portray a certain way. I'm working on the side with this amazing group of women. We're all women of color. We have an activism organization around women's issues, and so to work with these women and to see what they're capable of doing, and they're a little bit older than me, it just like gives me hope that one day I'm going to be like doing what they're doing.
I am curious, maybe a show of hands from the audience, about this type of mentoring relationship. How many of you would consider that you have a mentor for you in your careers today? And how many would say that you're actively looking or seeking to find someone who can be your mentor? So, almost similar, maybe number show of hands. And this is kind of a different question for the panelists, but what are some effective ways you've found to either find a mentor or that a mentee has found you and you've agreed to build that relationship? Can anyone share?
I can take this one. I think a really effective way to find a mentor is to ask somebody for coffee. If you're privileged enough to work at a tech company that has a kitchen with free stuff. Hey, do you want to go grab a tea or a coffee in the kitchen, or do you want to walk around the block so we can actually leave this office and have 15 minutes? Do you mind if I schedule 20 minutes on your calendar today to just pick your brain about your job? I've been looking at other areas of Optimizely to maybe move teams, and I've had coffee with around 12 people in the past 3 months, and everyone, if you just ask them what's going on, they're happy to tell you and they're happy to help you, and the minute you guys smile at each other and start talking, they'll tell you pretty much anything you need to know about their job and how you would be good at their job or how it would be a good fit. People are really kind if you just reach out, generally speaking. At Optimizely, anyway.
I should actually second that. That's actually how I started with the Phenomenal Women Action Campaign. I just reached out to the woman who was leading it. We ended up getting coffee. I thought we would meet for 30 minutes. It turned into like 2 hours. I was so late back to work. But it ended up being just a great relationship. And yeah, you just have to like really go out, network. It's exhausting. I remember like I would go to so many events and like everyone's talking to one another. You're like, where do I fit in? At the end of a panel, people rush all of the panelists. But it's just about like trying to find that time, that 20 minutes, that 30 minutes, where you can just like sit down and really get to know people and be genuine and be authentic about it, because that's really important as well.
I'm just gonna say definitely the coffee. So when I started in dev, like nobody talks to each other. Like we'd be sitting right next to each other and we'll still like chat. Like, no one would have the headphones. And then when I moved to product, everyone is so gregarious and outgoing, and let's do happy hour and let's do coffee. And but it was good because, like, again, the relationship thing. I thought I could be kind of the lone wolf and do things on my own, and you can't do that when you're playing product lead, and you have to be the point person for everybody. That's not. You have to be able to communicate, and you have to build those good relationships. But that's actually how I moved from dev to product, was having coffee with one of the directors of product, and I was like, do I have what it takes, or do I need to go to grad school and blow a bunch of money to switch careers? And just he was like, no, I'll give you a chance. So again, like if you prove yourself and you work, you have a good relationship, they like you, someone's going to give you a chance and take you under their wing and teach you.
An interesting pattern that I'm hearing, though, is that it seems that sometimes when these mentoring relationships develop, there's a clear ask. I'm interested in moving into this role or this department, and so when you ask for coffee or to walk around the block, it's like, I'd like to talk to you about X, versus an ask that's like, hey, you want to be my mentor? Or is that correct, or am I reading too much into it?
I think everyone wants an excuse to leave their desk for a few minutes, and everyone likes talking about themselves. So if you combine the two, you have a nice relationship.
there's also the I'm interested in get better understanding, how you got to where you are in your careers because I admire what you're doing.
I think also the phrase "I'm looking for a mentor" is really intimidating. Like, let's just grab coffee. Yeah, let's just meet.
And peers can be mentors too. Like you can learn something from your peers a lot.
What about sponsorship? Have any of you had an experience with like a sponsor at your company who kind of, maybe not necessarily a mentoring role, but has kind of looked out for you? So maybe from 2 levels above or 1 level above, just kind of put in a good word, make sure that you were getting the exposure that you deserve to get.
I haven't heard the word sponsorship before, but I like it. I think, like what I was referring to earlier with like being an ally. I think that's something that, I've been fortunate enough to have at Exygy and other companies where it more starts with like being a little vulnerable with one of us starting to build trust where you're able to say like, oh, I have this problem, I don't know what to do, and I'm feeling this way and that way about it, and kind of when, if the person's, ahead of you, they're more of like a leader in the company, or anyone, it builds that trust where then you have that empathy and deeper understanding. So when, maybe they're in their room when a promotion's being discussed or an opportunity might be given to you, because you've built an authentic relationship with the people that you're working with, it creates that sponsorship. And when you tell people, I really want to get into this, and you're talking to everyone about how you want a chance at something, then everyone starts to, have that bug in their ear, and they start finding opportunities to connect. So I would just say, like, focus on building relationships with people on your team.
Thanks, Rachel.
Rachel wants to.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to say, especially in tech, there are a lot of people who you may not even realize who have a vested interest in you staying. The hiring market right now is super competitive. Someone leaving because they're not having a good experience is really challenging. So I would even look within the company in terms of like, there are a lot of people who it would be a great investment for the company and for them to be investing in you, and just remember that, right? Like you are asking them to be a mentor, you are asking them to help you, but they also have like a vested interest in your success as well, and that's really important. So kind of finding those people as well kind of helps it be a bit more of like a 2-way relationship.
Here's a good business reason to retain people as
Yes.
well, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go somewhere a little sadder for a moment, but I did find another piece of data where in tech, the quit rate is more than twice as high for women versus men, which is incredible, right? 2x. So I'm curious to explore that a bit as well. So what are some of the factors either that you personally have experienced that cause you to leave a job, or that you see in your peers, friends, people in your network that have that you believe drive this metric?
Sure, I'll take it.
Absolutely.
I've had a couple incidents where I've left a job because I felt, or I left a company because I felt that they, for one reason or another, were looking past women as engineers. So one company I was working at, I was trying to get promoted, and so I was being mentored by one of the head engineers. And he basically made a comment to me that women are either smart or beautiful, they can't be both because it's a waste. And I didn't, okay, so then I didn't know what to do. So I sat there and then I went to his manager and said something, and then they were like, well, we can fire him eventually, but not yet. And I said, cool. And so then I talked to my manager about it, and he said, you could really find a higher paying, probably better company to work at if you just start applying right now. Thank you for the honesty. So, yeah, I mean, he was a great mentor. Like, my immediate manager was great. So, yeah, I left. I'm glad I did. And it's funny because I don't think that company misses me as an engineer, but they're missing something, because if you're going to have a culture like that, then how is anyone going to succeed who's different? Or I think they took care of that engineer eventually, but that was one issue. And then a different company, someone was giving a very motivational talk at the front of the room, and the company was going through big changes, and they said, this is kind of a sinking ship, but if you can help us stay afloat, we're going to reward you. If you're an engineer, come to the front after I'm done talking, and we'll talk about what you can do here. And my contract was about to come to an end, and I was like, I'm an engineer. I should go talk to him, because he told me to go talk to him, because he wants engineers to go talk to him. So I walked up to him, and I said, hi. He said, hi, and then kept walking. And I was like, all right, I guess I don't look like an engineer, so I'm going to go work somewhere else. And then the next company was optimizing, basically. So it's little things like that where you take a step back and you think, is this because of what I look like, or am I not giving off the vibe that I'm an engineer? But then you go somewhere where you can wear anything you want and still do the work that you're supposed to be doing and get rewarded for it, and then no, that was just a bad company culture. So yeah, those are my experiences.
At least for me personally and my friends, it's always been like deciding if you're gonna have a family. And like for me, I'm older, and I definitely sacrificed, because I wanted to be at a certain level, and I was like, screw relationships, I don't need to have kids or whatever, and you want to reach director level, which I finally got. And actually when I went to Apple, I was like, forget it, because it's impossible to be director out there. It really is, like, unless you've worked there for a really long time, and you're a guy. But yeah, and seeing my friends, and at the time, like, we didn't have the opportunity to freeze our eggs. Like, that was experimental at that time. There was no benefits like that. So a lot of people made the choice, like, I'm gonna, I got a graduate degree, or I got this, and I love my job, and that's who I am, and I want to do that, and they made the sacrifice. It's very competitive. And I know my friends who have kids now, and they're like, I either suck at home or I suck at work. Like, you make that choice. You can't have it all. And I think that's why a lot of women end up leaving. It's like, I want to have either a balanced life, or I want to have, good quality time with my family. And sometimes here in Silicon Valley, it's really hard to have that when the work-life balance is difficult.
Square made a really interesting decision. We have a diversity and inclusion team, but they actually ended up changing the word order, so it's now called inclusion and diversity. And I think that really speaks to something important when you're looking at retaining people, because inclusion is such a big deal. You can get people in the door pretty easily, but if you're not able to keep them, it's like, why even try to do this? So I've been really, I admire what they're trying to do. Obviously there's a lot of work, I think, across all of these different companies, but changing mindsets is really important so that you're thinking about the right problems to solve, so that you're not just kind of like throwing money or work for no reason at problems.
I will just second that. I think culture is like probably the biggest reason people leave, and I think it's more than just like women leaving. I think like there's a lot of underrepresented people in tech, and unless like there's a culture that's able to like be inclusive and have really tough conversations about the ways that they're falling short, and not giving growth paths to certain people, I think that's one of the key things that I hear from folks why they're leaving. I do a ton of interviews, and that's something that I do hear. So I think in terms of like finding the right spot and retention, like being really, having a culture where there's trust and safety and vulnerability to say really tough things to improve the culture, because it doesn't just happen because like, you create a policy. A lot of the times, like, I've created tons of policies, and then you go to a meeting and you're like, so was that good? Like, it was based on your feedback, and everyone's like, no, it didn't meet our need, but unless people are able to complain about it and tell you what needs to be better, then like the culture just sits in like disappointment and unmet expectations, and it gets toxic from there.
So I'll ask a follow-up question on that, and this actually bridges me to the next area I was going to do, but how do you create that culture of openness and transparency so people do feel comfortable coming to you and saying, we got to work on this, or I was uncomfortable in that situation? What do you put into place?
Yeah, I think this is one of the examples where it really has to be top down. Leaders create the safety. So if there are consequences to saying that something is not right, then it's not a safe space. So when leaders are able to say, like, honestly, I don't think our pay system is fair, to the whole team, it's like,
whoa, that just started a conversation. Or, I've like had a moment where I was being biased in a meeting, and like I caught that, and be able to share that with the team, or just be vulnerable about their own fears or things that are happening. I think that makes it safe for the next person to bring a problem to the team. So it's one of those things that's like definitely top down for me.
Leaders modeling the right behavior.
Absolutely.
I would say that, like, yeah, you want to have, at least one of the core values of Apple is having, like, an environment of candor so that you're able to talk. Passive-aggressive behavior is not, like, accepted at all. So you need to be able to have those heated conversations with respect, especially if you're at work. You need to not, like, and I've experienced this, but where people kind of, like, backstab or say things behind your back. It's like, if you have a problem, you need to talk to me directly. I set up one-on-ones. That's how I am actually proactive. So again, having those relationships, making sure, like, you don't have to be best friends, but you got to make sure that what you're doing day in, day out is effective and productive. And just, yeah, I mean, it all goes back to relationships. But if you have the one-on-ones and you have these forums, like cross-team check-ins, where it's even just like a standard, like, hey, what's everybody doing? What's going on? Is anyone blocked? Like, that's really going to get you through your day. But when people don't speak up and then they blame others, that's when it's like you're responsible for communicating that.
And it also, it just creates like big learning opportunities for folks. Like, one person on our team is not a native English speaker, and like she was having, she was working with the client, and the client just like kept disregarding everything that she was saying and looking to like our white male team member. And after the meeting, like, our culture is a space where, like, we've created some safety there to say, like, I need you to be my ally. I don't know if you notice this is happening, that they're not directing questions to me, this isn't happening, and I need your help. And, the guy was like, I had no idea that was happening, and, like, that's okay that happens, we all, like, aren't aware of everything. But creating those, like, safe, like, check-ins and one-on-ones makes it where, it builds the whole culture up. Because everyone's learning from that.
We get a lot of questions when we have women at events from men and like white men who are like, can I come to these events? And we're like, yes, this is an open, inclusive place. Like, we want you to come, we want you to learn, we don't want you to take over the conversation. But it's just a space where everyone has an opportunity to learn and to also acknowledge, like, people are going to make mistakes. Like, somebody is going to mess up. It's going to be painful. If you can't have that conversation, though, afterwards about how you messed up, no one's going to learn. And especially around microaggressions, because they're so granular, and it's very, I think, personal in how you can interpret some of them. But if the person who is being microly aggressive doesn't want to talk about it, you're never going to get past that.
I'll just add, similar to what you guys have all said, one-on-ones are super important from the top down. The first one-on-one I had at Optimizely, I'd come from all those kind of toxic and strange cultures before, and I was shaking. I was so nervous for this one-on-one with this guy Holger, who's the best and really high up in the company. And he's just sat me down. He's like, "So how's it going? How are you doing here?" And I was so shocked. I thought that I was definitely in trouble, and now but now I can talk to him and any of my managers about anything because we have regular one-on-ones, and I know that it's okay to talk to them whenever I need to. So it's important.
So just kind of, I think we're heading there, but I am curious also from the audience, how many of you have managerial responsibility? So you supervise people and people who report to you. Yeah, so there's a good number here, yeah. I'm interested in learning from the panelists, in a position of influence as a manager of other people or in a chief of staff role, a people ops role where you are working on frameworks, you're working on policies, you're working on one-on-one relationships. What are things that you've done to make things better for women in your workplace?
Well, like I said, I learned because, like, sometimes when I had, in the past, women mentors, I didn't feel like they were in my best interest or like they felt threatened. So I don't want to have that kind of relationship with the younger girls that are coming into tech and they're already intimidated and they're intimidated with our culture. So, we have like informal lunches, we talk about their career goals, and making sure they're fulfilled and they're happy in what they're doing. I mean, you do have to pay your dues, but I'm also really transparent around the work, like, so they're not disappointed in the things that we have to do, but that there is a path, do these things solidly first and know it and have a good attitude about it, and then talk about having the plan so that they're fulfilled. Because it's all about, like, you're going to stay at a job if you feel like you're growing and that your skill set's expanding. If you're going to be stunted, like, there's no, what's the point? You're just kind of like, you become a liability because you just kind of are less engaged with work, and we don't want people like that coming into work. Like, we would rather you quit and give the job to somebody who wants to learn and to try hard every day and to keep learning.
My manager thanks everyone, like, every single day when they leave. She's always thanking people. She, like, practices gratitude to the utmost that I've ever seen anyone practice gratitude. She read the gratitude diaries, which I've also read, and it's an amazing book. I recommend it for everyone. But everyone on her team knows that she is thankful that you are showing up every single day with whatever you can bring. Sometimes it's 100%, sometimes it is not 100%. But yeah, just having that gratitude shown on a daily basis is so important.
Sorry, I was just going to add, I do have a lot of happy hours with my team. Just, again, informal, keeping them happy. Like, we're all people at the end of the day. Like, everybody's the same. Like, let's just have a good time at work hard, but have fun. Like, and it's coming out of my pocket. Like, it's not even like a work-sponsored event. But, yeah, I don't even think it's, like, allowed. But I do it anyway. There's like Japanese whiskey on my desk, and I'm like, okay, I mean, but you want to work with friends and I be happy, and that's what you got to do. Like, we're all family, and Angela's okay.
I didn't tell you.
Okay, good.
I can speak to that a little bit, and then like the people outside of things. I think like since I've been at Exygy, we've hired 3 women like right out of college, first job, 22, and I think like. For me, I remember being in that spot and it being assumed that I knew how to like be in an office and write an email that wasn't like, I love to do this, 7 exclamation points. And, I was probably a rougher case than this, but I think that it's really important to, have these authentic check-ins and connections where you're able to sit down and just say like, what's on your plate? How's it going? Like, knowing who their manager is and being able to say, like, I've worked with them before. Sometimes it's easier when you send them this ahead of the meeting and give them tips and just sitting in it with them. I think is really important. And it builds trust, and when something happens, they can come to you and have an ally. But I think it's just really critical for junior employers, younger people to like have someone check in with them like that, because a lot of the time it's super overwhelming. And so. From the people ops perspective, I mean, I spoke to this a little bit, but just like setting up the structure for people, and like I do get a lot of exposure to our leadership team, and I think, Roshan and myself, we kind of like beat the same drum of like transparency, equity, is this in line with our values? And I sometimes I get mad, I'm like, I cannot be the accountability police, like I can't be holding everyone accountable all the time, I'm not, your mom. But I think it's a really important role to have, to play. It's a huge responsibility because that's how you continue to create a culture where there's safety and fairness and all of these values aren't being corrupted. And so I think like from a leadership perspective, that's something that like I take really seriously in my position.
Yeah, Rachael and I had an interesting discussion right before the panel about the phenomenon of squeaky wheels. So, with processes in place, with frameworks that are equitable, you don't really end up with a situation where the people who shout a little louder, who shout a little more often, are the people who ultimately get rewarded, whether or not that is a merited decision.
Right, and like in line with that, like we created this structure, and it's definitely not perfect. We also created like quarterly feedback sessions instead of like one annual review process where all of your compensation is tied to this conversation. but instead like let's get feedback regularly so that way you can continue to improve and like create those safe spaces to have conversations about growth and things like that. So I think there's like a lot of leadership responsibility to make structure where it's not just on women to get louder.
So my managers, Brian and Cyrus at Optimizely, are the best managers I've had ever because, well, many reasons, but the one I want to highlight is that they really care about setting you up for your career, not just the job that they're managing you at. So they make it really clear from the beginning, look, if you want to lead this team, we really want to keep you in this company, so let's talk about what the steps need to be for you to get where you want to be. How about you talk to different people at this company and you see what you'd like to do, and then we can set you up with personal projects to work you towards that goal, so when that job opens, you can fill it. And they do a fantastic job at that, and they're super supportive whenever you want to apply somewhere else, even like outside of Optimizely, they're happy. So you feel incredibly supported, and it makes you feel more satisfied in the role for longer because you, in support, so we answer customer questions all day, and we're debugging discrepancies and things that you can get a serious burnout, and they know that, and so they're like, look, we're gonna help you have the best time here, but also if you need to go, we're gonna help you be as successful as you can before you get there, or to help you get there.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to allow the audience to share their questions. So I know all our panelists thought a lot about the stories they wanted to share and experiences they wanted to tell you all about, but I'm going to ask them to think about what their peers shared on the panel today. And so this question is all about kind of how can we take action. So, and I actually ask as they're thinking for everyone in the audience to think as well, but what is one small thing, one baby step, one initial action that you, after hearing your peers speak, believe you can take tomorrow morning when you go back to work that might make things a little better, whether for yourself or your people around you or people you know? I won't pick anyone to go first. You guys can choose.
I got it. So giving people feedback without fear, or I mean, being respectful, but also giving feedback, I think, is a big thing. Sometimes I am someone who's comfortable with confrontation, but if I feel like the next person's uncomfortable with it, I'll hold back because I don't want to have a really uncomfortable exchange in the workplace. And I've actually been putting off having an exchange for like a week, and now I'm gonna have to go home after this, write an email or have a one-on-one because, as you said, that it's really important to get things out in the open because we need to work together and be respectful. So that's what I'm gonna teach.
I think for me, I really like to try and show up for people, but also check in to see how they're doing. We all have different experiences. We all come to work having, like, I get on a really crazy bus in the morning, every single morning to get to work. And it's one of those things where, like, you don't know how people are walking in the door. And so just to have that check-in in the morning is super important. And it also makes people feel seen, which is important.
I think for me, like, and listening to all of you, like the workforce has definitely changed since I've been in it and seen tech evolve. But a lot of what you were saying about having a space of vulnerability, like that was definitely not around when, I used to go in the bathroom and cry a lot. I've definitely developed a thicker skin, but now that I'm working with younger people and that are much more emotionally intelligent, I'm more aware of that and trying to understand how I can be a better manager to those people. And they actually even teach it. That's a course of like emotional intelligence at work to all the managers, like so that you understand it. Because especially in tech, that's something that's not like we don't have time for that, before. But now that we have these, different groups and again a different generation where we're much more emotionally aware and vocal about it. And we want to keep you guys there. I think that's something that managers have to learn how to speak that language. So I'm kind of, trying to learn that.
I think the story that Rachael told at the beginning about her manager, not because she wanted to win any points, because it was a great story, that made me realize, like, I'm now thinking about how can I be more of an upstander for somebody else. And so I'm going to set a personal goal to find at least one opportunity to like stand up for someone else or shine a light on someone else, and just when I'm in a meeting not being so focused on like myself and what I'm going to accomplish in that meeting, but how is everybody else in this room part of this? And like maybe there's someone in the room who hasn't spoken for an hour and a half, but might have something really great to share, and like, calling on that person. I think those little things and just institutionalizing that with myself, based on that story, could maybe have a nice impact.
I think I often operate in a mode of problem solving. That's 99% of my day is someone being like, oh, this is broken, we don't know what to do. And so I think the comment about practicing gratitude and recognizing people instead of focusing on what's not working, celebrating what is working, and recognizing people for that, and like vulnerability and feedback, like all of these things are hard. And so when we're doing it right, we really have to celebrate that. And the second, I'm gonna have two. The second piece here around intentionally asking people, like, where do you want to go? How do you want to grow? How can I help you? I think like that directness is really valuable, and I'd like to try that.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the audience. What questions would you like to ask our panelists? Yes.
So my name is Chris. I'm lucky enough to work in a company called Honor that has more than 60% women in our HQ. But how do I become and inspire others to become better male allies? Because I feel like sometimes there's always that line that you have to make sure you don't go like stepping on someone's toes or doing too much, and then it's kind of like, wait, are you trying to take away my thunder? So what's that balance like?
So I'll repeat the question.
Chris.
Chris is asking, although in his company and it's 60% women, he's wondering what are ways he could be a better ally to women without stepping on toes, or what's respectful and helpful way to do that.
I think you have to ask, first of all, like all the women that you work with. I work in community, and so I'm interacting with a lot of people every single day, and a lot of times when miscommunications happen, it's because I haven't asked somebody what they're looking for. And I think showing up as an ally happens in a lot of different ways for different people. So in Rachael's story, for example, like having somebody speak up for her during a meeting is like a great way of doing that. But there are some women who are like, I've got meetings down. Like I will interrupt every single person in here and like make sure that I'm heard. So you just have to figure out how everybody wants you to show up as an ally. And I would just encourage you to ask, because that's really, you're going to get the answer that way.
Yeah, I would totally second that and just say, I think like most of the women that I work with are really good about checking in with me, being like, hey, is something off today, or how are you doing? But a lot of the men that I work with are sit down and like, what's on our agenda today? I think just generally like when you're having one-on-ones or building a relationship, I think like it's really important to start with that. So you can like get to know people as a whole person, so then you can be like the ally that they need. And yeah, just like more of a spirit of curiosity. When you notice someone's being triggered or feeling defensive, or you're like, ooh, the temperature just raised in this room, in this conversation, I think just being like, I'm observing there's like a little shift here. Is, what can we do better? Or like, this is what I'm hearing. Can I clarify that? Is that what the intention is? So spirit of inquiry and like building authentic relationships.
One thing we haven't covered today, but I think is super important, is the emotional labor component of work. And it's like a really easy thing that you can recognize and help with that seems subtle but makes a big difference. So a lot of times when there's like a team event or a team gathering, you'll notice the women typically will be ordering the food or getting the drinks or doing the setup. Like if there's a women in tech event and you want to help out, right, but you don't want to feel like you're encroaching or going too far, like even just being aware of those kinds of things and contributing there. There's a lot of expectations, particularly for not just women, but anyone who's underrepresented in tech, to carry this emotional labor of having to do all the work to make everybody aware of all the issues. And when there's those types of events or there's those talks or things like that, helping fill in those gaps so they can focus on some of the bigger things, I think is a big one. And I've noticed whenever there's like a guy on my team who's like, oh well, like I'll order the food. I'm like, what? I don't know. This is just like a random example, but like I rarely see men order food for events. So like that is like one super easy thing you can do tomorrow. There you go.
The company dishwasher. Company. Yes.
So I've been an HR business partner for the better part of a decade, and so that means I'm influencing C-suite. C-suite is often vanilla dudes. So when I'm speaking with them, and I notice something like we're not aligned with what we say as our cultural values, and that's huge. That's like what we're saying. The pills are like I don't belong here. Diverse, but why would I be taking them out? Right? So when I'm trying to get these people to see their ways, is often seen as feminine. Like, oh, well, there's this woman telling me to be soft again. How have you guys successfully like penetrated that calcified ridiculous?
And what is your name? Milana. Okay, so I'm going to paraphrase, and I'm not sure if I'm going to get it right, but I'll try. So, in working with leadership teams, executive teams, where in many cases, based on data, it may be men, white men, when a situation comes up where you may realize we just don't agree at a values level, fundamentally, philosophically, how have you been able to manage those situations with or without race? Did I paraphrase that?
Yes. Well, yeah. The very end usually gets blamed on this is a soft skills thing. This isn't a power. This isn't something that impacts a bottom line. So sometimes it's lesser or importance, although it's why it's going forward.
Got it. So, and then the point that you may have brought up might have actually been brushed off as this is immaterial. This has no impact on the bottom line, on the business, etc.
I haven't had that much interaction with a lot of C-level people, but oh my gosh. I would sort of bring it to them as a challenge, like, oh, so you want to be stagnant? Like, so you don't want to improve. So if we don't change what we're doing, then we're really just losing because everyone else around us, we're in Silicon Valley, everyone else is experimenting and trying new things. So I don't know why we would waste time doing the same thing when we could be improving. That's my sort of...
So if we're doing the same thing, we're going to lose out to brands.
Yeah, I mean, this is an idea that is from Optimizely. Like, I had really no idea about experimentation culture, and that's a big thing that, I mean, it's our entire company. And our tagline from last year is basically, if you're not experimenting, you're losing. Meaning everyone around you is trying new things, and they're seeing what wins, and then they're implementing those changes, and they're iterating on it, and they're going to continue to experiment, they're going to continue to improve, and they're going to evolve. That's how evolution works, and this is an ecosystem, just like all of history. And so, okay, so if you want to stay stagnant and not evolve and die, that's one option. Or we can continue to grow, and we can change for the better. So I would sort of challenge that because I don't know how you would say, well, no, I would really just be still water and, that's it. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I was going to say, so in the past, like our leader, he was not known for his soft skills and movies about it and books about it. And there's actually still leftover remnants, and I have to go to the C staff to present our work that we're building, and it's still some of that same culture. And we actually hired people to train these executives that have been here for 25 to 30 years that still have that old mentality of shitting on everybody and making people feel bad. I'm not even lying, like that's kind of, we have to mentally prepare, and I actually thank my manager for like preparing me for those conversations. He's like, has nothing to do with you, this is just what they do. Like just go in there and, be strong, and but that's how they are. But those soft skills, they literally hire outside consultants and train these managers so that they can have this skill so that we're not losing these people. And when you have morale like that, it does impact the bottom line. because productivity's down, no one wants to work, people are scared, and that was effective for a little while, but then when you have people who are focusing on those things now and realizing like what it causes in the bottom line, you're losing talent, you're losing, you know, great people, and the kind of toxic culture that is, they're starting, the tides are shifting. It's gonna take a while though, because they're like, oh, it's worked this far, you know, but, and you have everybody at the top who's been taught that way. And having them change is like really hard. It's like getting like, you know, a huge cruise to change course. It's really difficult, but it's happening. And, you know, if you're patient enough and you're part of that, you know, change, and that's why I want to be part of that change, like just understanding, because I've been indoctrinated too. Like, I've been in this industry and I thought I had to be tough and I thought I had to be like, you know, the people before me, but it's like, that's not actually not even who I am. And having these conversations about being vulnerable and like we're just people, we're trying to do good work, like that's the kind of culture you want, and that's what I'm saying, run. Like you have to be proactive when you're interviewing and you find out it's a culture like that, you run, like because you know it's going to take a long time for them to change, and then try to be, you know, go somewhere else where you know you be able to grow.
I find myself in that situation a lot where I'm, you know, trying to influence the leadership of the company. And I think like I don't have all the answers to it, and I usually end up like throwing the kitchen sink at it, trying to see what sticks. But I read this quote today from an article that was about the book, A Uterus is a Feature, Not a Bug. And the author was saying that Silicon Valley is supposed to be based on data. But a lot of the time decisions are made based on leadership's gut, so that means men's emotions. And I was like, whoa. And what I like sitting here thinking and listening to everyone's answers, I think so many of the resistance and defensiveness that comes out when you're making a change based on like these soft skills, I think a lot of it I try to like understand what is your fear here? What are you afraid will happen? What is the risk? So we can talk about that. And also trying to sadly like navigate ego, because like I don't want to look bad. I don't want to fail. I don't want to be wrong. Like all of these things are like superhuman. It's not just men who do that, right? Like leadership's hard. There's a lot of responsibility there. And I think like being an ally to that person and sitting in it with them and boiling it down, like what are you afraid of here? How can I support you and mitigate that? It's really helpful.
So, just so I can play that back to you.
Yeah.
When the coolest art museum I ever went to was in Africa, and it had this African headdress that had a white line, gray on one side, black on one side of the top. What's this other side? I'm like, hey, obviously, no. Like, okay, great. And it's fear. Like, whatever you do, you don't understand. You start to create these storylines, be it your C-suite, be it your male counterpart, be it that woman who doesn't wish you well in your business. And it's just like trying to abolish that and find a way to be with each other. It's like the only way I've found to truly move forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that fear piece, being a leader out of fear and pointing out when decisions are made out of fear is like really important. And a lot of the time, like, you don't know when you're doing that. You're just like, my gut says this is the wrong thing. And someone has to be like, why? To break down the gut for me. So I think it's a lot of partnership.
I think we have time for one or two more questions. I saw you were raising your hand.
I have actually just a quick comment about what the question that just went in the panel's response to the remote location, and I've been getting a lot of pushback from my higher ups at our other location, and it's just going to have like email exchanges and one-on-ones and things happening. So this was a really valuable lesson for me of just like challenging and saying, well, I've given you all the data, I've given you everything. Why not? What are you saying that I'm not? And what kind of focus you need to navigate out of that? I'm pretty sure you're going to.
Yeah.
I guess this is roughly that people who have their entire career in tech, but started somewhere else and then moved into tech. How did you make that decision and why? Like, I guess it was the process.
So the question from, what's your name?
Shyla.
Shyla. is for those of you who started in other industries and ultimately chose to move into tech, what was your decision-making process? How did you choose to move into tech?
So I actually started in politics, policy, and political organizing. So I worked for foreign government when I first got out of college, and it was really great because I think it grounded me. Tech is this crazy world where you don't have to leave the building to go out and interact with your neighborhood. And so I really found myself appreciative of a lot of things when I did move into tech. I personally grew up in the Bay Area, so it's always been something for me where I'm like, there's this thing that's been surrounding me for so long, I should try it. And it's very creative. I get to try and fail a lot more than I think I would in another opportunity. When I worked for the foreign government, it was just so rigid, and I'm much more of a I like to color all around and outside the lines and stuff, and so policy was great because it was very intellectually challenging for me, but then when I was able to move into tech, it was all of the above. So yeah, but I would encourage everyone who does work in tech, as much as you love it, to do something on the side that is not tech, because you need to have that balance, and you need to have that reality hit you every once in a while.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
Yes, so there's been a theme that has come up in terms of the importance of culture, and in some cases, when to realize, especially in the interview process, that this company has some red flags that should make you continue your journey. Now, I think for those of us in the room, we're probably already working at a company, and we're really interested in terms of where are the opportunities to shift culture, and what are some of the tactics that if you are not seeing these things in play by a certain time, is an indication that that culture is not going to shift. And that really, you need to reflect back and maybe find another opportunity that would allow you to grow. I know that's a very hard question, but I'm really curious because you have said that you have evolved in your careers, and it sounds like from everyone up here, you found your place. Some of us may want to create that place or find a place that's in line with what we want culturally.
Thank you. And your name, please?
My name is Sarah.
Sarah, okay. And this will be our last question for the panelists. So just to repeat the question, I think in the interview process with a company, or perhaps in the onboarding process as you're getting to know a company, have you been able to identify any red flags that have helped you realize that perhaps this is a place where the culture is as it is, and it's unlikely that if you stick around, things will change for the better? So what are some signals that you may have been able to pick up?
I would say during the interview process, asking about growth opportunities is big. And every single person you interview with, asking about if they've been able to find growth with the company, I think is really important. Because, so I happen to do a lot of interviews, and whenever people ask me that question, I can tell what they're looking for is this an environment in which people help each other thrive and grow? What has your manager done for you to help you grow is a great question. What has this company done for you to help you grow? And if it's hard for them to answer that question, I would say that's probably a red flag.
I think also if you are giving honest feedback and you feel comfortable with that, observing the reaction of the person that you're delivering that feedback to is super important. If that person brushes it aside or isn't willing to have an open conversation with you, that is definitely a red flag. And that means that there's not a larger conversation to be had towards making change. So there will be no cultural change.
In the past, I've asked for people that I would directly work with. Because sometimes I give you a lineup and you don't know exactly who this person is. It could be a random. And I just want to talk to somebody who I'm going to be talking to day in, day out. I did have an interview with the VP of engineering, and we got into a fight during our interview, which was a huge red flag. And he said I reminded him of his daughter. And then I said, totally. And I actually walked out, and then they were like, did we do something wrong? And I was like, don't, this is not the right place for me. And then he actually ended up he's like, I love my daughter. And like, he's like, in so many good ways. I ended up working for them, I did. But it, again, like kind of on a bad day, like both of us were in it, like there was the last interview and he was just trying to like, I don't know, because I was an engineer and he was a VP of engineering, he was just like getting irrelevant things and I was just, it was not my best self either. But I'm glad I did that because I was like, oh, this is how this guy's gonna handle like conflict, and that's where like you want to kind of get into those conversations because you want to see those true colors. Everyone's trying to be nicer in an interview and we were not being nice, but that's actually what's gonna happen in real life. Like it's always gonna be these, tenuous conversations. You want to make sure that that person's going to treat you with respect. And, sadly, I've developed, a very thick skin working in the industry and working with a lot of men, being the only girl in the room. So I just don't take things personally anymore, and I kind of laugh it off. But like I said before, I used to cry. Like, it really used to bother me, and I didn't know who I could talk to. There wasn't women I could talk to. But now it's just like, okay, it has nothing to do with me. Like, this is something wrong with the culture or something wrong with that individual. I'm going to continue, like, trying my hardest and not take it personally and eventually that, people notice that. It's kind of hard, though, if you feel like there's a lot of people against you, though. So that's why finding the right culture and finding the right fit is important. And that's, like, what you have to do during that interview is make sure, like, it's like finding a school, right? Like, is this where I'm going to thrive and learn? Be my best self, and if not, then like there's so many other opportunities out there.
Also, I think asking the question, so if you're interviewing for a specific team, where are the people who were on this team in the company now? So have they moved on and have they stayed in the company? Have they grown? Are they managers now? Like what are they doing? And if you get an answer sort of like, oh, we hire a lot like outside, that we don't promote from within, we don't promote internally, then that's probably a red flag.
And I would just plug Exygy here for a second. We are hiring a senior product manager. So if you're looking, we're hiring. But in terms of flags, I would just like look at leadership too. If you're at a company and leaders and managers aren't modeling what you're looking for, and then as you guys said, aren't receptive to the feedback that you have, then like it's not going to change because that kind of stuff it really is top down.
Okay, so thank you to our awesome panelists. Thank you for being super open and for sharing with us. And thank you to all of you who came here tonight. And we love having you here at Bright Idea. And stay, network, find your mentor, get to know us. Thrilled to have you.
Really just the same thing. Talk to each other, network, thank you, and it's been great hearing this advice, the part that we can do differently as women in the workforce, but then also we have to think about how we change the system that we're inside, so it doesn't demand us to do things differently. And instead, we get to make the whole system different, because that's the real benefit of diversity, right? The benefit of diversity is that we change the thing that put us in this place where every man leaves the room and you're left there thinking, am I supposed to pick up all the dishes? Right? How many women does that happen to? Where you've been in a meeting and every man leaves the room with their food and cup on the table, right? I mean, that happens. Yeah. Or we think like, oh, that's right, we're supposed to ask for money or do these things. But in fact, the system has to change too. And it's got to happen from both directions. So thank you all very much for being here.